Hello, 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 and welcome. I am Shane Moore, and I'll be your host for the next 3 hours, depending on how things go. If not, then we'll go 2 hours. But tonight, we'll be talking about the Archangel Samael. We'll discuss how Samael, whose name carries death and temptation as powers of God, and how Samael is related to the planet Mars, the fifth sephiroth on the Tree of Life, the Kabbalah, God's judgment and punishment, the Garden of Eden, Lilith, and much more. We'll discuss how Samael and the many things he is related to are not to be taken so much literally, but rather metaphorically. Metaphorical spiritual truth and knowledge to illuminate the soul. We'll be taking your comments and questions via live chat or by phone. The show number is 903-956-0055. Outside the U.S., just add +1 to that, 903-956-0055. We'll take a short break to allow listeners who want to join the live chat to do so. We will be back for an exciting show, an informative show, in 3 minutes. And I'm back. Hello, Elaine. Glad you're here. How is Elaine? Since you're the only one here right now. The others will be joining shortly. I hope you're well. I know you've been through the ringer, to say the least, with your surgery and everything, but you're still kicking, so that's good. Anyway, we'll just wait and have the others join. But you say your incision's hurting because of Bella, which is Elaine's dog, and she's quite something. She kind of has a human complex where she's human and tries to speak. Hey, Zippy, glad you're here. Looking forward to meeting you. So I won't go into that, but yes, I'm doing well. I hope everybody's doing well. Tonight we'll be talking about Samael, and when most people talk about archangels, it's always Michael, most of the time. Okay, well, that's no problem, Zippy. I mean, I understand. Sometimes the internet just has a mind of its own, probably literally. But things happen, so no problem. But when most people talk about archangels, it's always Michael, and that has always it's just hey, Jacob, glad you're here. But that has really that tells me a lot. Is number one, they use the name Michael. Hey, Nazarene, glad you're here. They talk about Michael, as I've said before, a lot of times, as like he's their buddy. They sit on the couch and watch Jerry Springer eating Cheetos, and it's like, really? Yeah, it's just Michael. Some say, Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael. Those are the three main known archangels. But you very rarely hear someone say Samael or Raziel. You just don't hear that. And if someone does mention those names, you're probably dealing with somebody that has some knowledge beyond Michael, Gabriel, Raphael. Of course, I mean, we learned those names in Bible school or in school. Well, not public school, but so that kind of tells you that if someone tells you, yeah, Michael, the archangel, is my protector, and I talk to him every day. Pretty, that's like screaming, I have no knowledge really, but I'm trying to impress you. So, and I'm sorry that it's just that's the truth. Hello, Patricia. Glad you joined us. Jacob, you are right. Samael is the angel of death, better known as the Grim Reaper. But before you change the dial, thinking that this is going to be a really negative, demonic, creepy show, hear me out. It's not what it seems, and that's what I want to explain tonight. And that's why I said 3 hours if everything goes well. And people stay for the chat and everything, because I really feed off of your comments, questions, ideas, perspectives, everything. So, but we say the angel of death, better known as the Grim Reaper, and some have even, at one point in history, Samael was the literal equal of Satan. Okay, well, when you look at it in the correct perspective, you have to remember that most Scripture, it is truth, but it's truth veiled in metaphorical language. So when it says he's the archangel of death, he's the Grim Reaper, he is Satan, and some have even said he's the Antichrist. That's metaphorical language describing something that may not be a literal entity. And I say that kind of, what I mean is it may be a literal entity, but at the same time, it's describing and it's passing on spiritual truth, spiritual knowledge that's much more important than a literal entity. And I will get to that. So, but there's, some people, when you say, well, I'm going to be talking about the angel of death tonight, they're like, whoop, that's negative. Change the dial. Let's go somewhere else. Let's listen to the, Goat Ropers podcast. We don't want to listen to this guy. Nothing against the Goat Ropers podcast, if there is one. But, yeah. So, Samael, you're right, Jacob. Samael, supposedly, as it's written in Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, the three most popular religions in the world, they all were born from the same set of beliefs, the same basic set of beliefs. They all trace their roots back to Abraham. Abraham in the Bible, Father Abraham, that's what the Jewish people, they call him Father Abraham. Very, very, one of the main, big men in the Bible. Abraham is huge. Patricia, you say, I was thinking it was similar to Charon in the underworld in Greek mythology. Well, you're right, it would be. To some extent. I mean, it would be. And I'll get to that too. I'm glad that you brought that up. But he is, often shown holding what do you call it? The big blade, I don't know. I just lost me. But the main thing is there are many powerful angels, and there are many demons that are mentioned. Yes. Thank you, Patricia. Terrifying demons from the Bible, from Lucifer to Azazel. But Samael is in a class of his own. He's the quintessential one. And when when I did the research on Samael, I thought I knew quite a bit about Samael, but man, I just knew the tip of the iceberg. I mean, this guy is related to everything, and that's what's so fascinating about it. Is he's the quintessential one, and it's because he's eternally loyal to God. So, people say, well, the Grim Reaper, if he's the Grim Reaper, if he's, been known as Satan, if he's been known as this or that, he must be evil. Well, when it comes to Samael, he's neither good or evil. It's kind of like he's neutral. And if you think about it as energy, I'm going to say that again. If you think about it as energy, as you should, energy in itself is neither good nor evil. It just is. It's how it's used. It's the observers or the one using it. It's their intention. It's how they use it that makes it good or evil. But in itself, it's neither good nor evil. There's been a lot of religious translations, as we know. I mean, there's what 300 different translations of the Bible. There's the NIV, the New American Standard, which is what I use because it goes back to the Greek, Hebrew, and with the word meanings. But even then, it's not. People I've heard old people say, I carry the 1611 King James version, the same one that Paul and Peter and Paul carried, and I'm thinking, does 1611 ring a bell? I mean, we're talking 2,000 years ago, right? So how did that happen? Did they travel in time to the future and grab them a King James Bible and they're walking around with it? Whoa! And the Bible wasn't even created until the Council of Nicaea in 312 A.D. by the Roman Catholic Church, and the books were chosen by Roman Catholic cardinals. I mean, bishops and cardinals, I believe, but the high-ranking, Vatican. They chose the 66 books that make up the Bible that everybody, talks about. There were books that were left out. Books that I believe were just as important, and I won't get into why they were left out, but there's just, maybe they held truth, they held knowledge that they didn't want people to know. I think that's the case. But anyway, it says there's a ton of interesting facts about the Archangel Samael, like the time he wrestled with Jacob. Okay, in the Bible, it says that Jacob, who later became Israel, and he became Israel after he wrestled with this mysterious angel all night. Well, the Jewish people, or I should say those that are in Judaism, those that study the Kabbalah, they say that the angel that he wrestled with was Samael. And those of you that aren't that don't read the Bible, or you're not familiar with it, it says that Samael, or it says Jacob wrestled with an angel all night, and it said that the sun was starting to come up. It was morning. And the angel said, let me go. And Jacob said, I won't let you go unless you bless me. And blessing someone is not just a mental thing. It's not just it's not smoke and mirrors. It's literally a tangible thing, and it's very powerful. So he was wanting this angel to bless him, give him power, lay hands on him, and literally bless him. And he said, I'm not going to let you go until you do. And it says the angel blessed him and touched his hip, touched his thigh or his hip, and his hip socket went out of place, or popped out. So not really, not the best thing that could happen, but we're talking about an angel, which they say was Samael. Okay, you have to remember in the Bible, it's not going to say, and Samael, or the angel, when it says touched his hip or touched his thigh, it's talking about he touched his sexual organs. He touched his testicles. Where we get the word testament, testify, and you can laugh or whatever, but that's the truth. When they would testify, when a man would testify or have a testimony, oftentimes it was his testicles that were paramount. I mean, he was testifying, he was telling his truth or what had happened to him on account or while holding. I say holding, I mean he was touching his testicles. Testify, testimony, it all comes from the testes. Okay? And this is the kicker. This is what I'm talking about as far as the metaphorical language and how truth is hidden in metaphorical language. Samael is also the archangel that is in charge of the sexual desire, the libido, the I guess you could say that he's in charge of the bodily functions of sex. So there you go. Sex, reproduction, whatever. Samael, he's the one. So that explains when he touched Jacob's hip. He wasn't touching his hip. He was, yeah, right. Tricia, sir, what are you doing? I'm testifying. Okay, well, this is a courtroom. Take your testicles off the podium. Yes. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Freud would love him. But matter of fact, Freud, if you remember, Patricia, he wrote a book and wrote a lot about Moses and gave his, theories about Moses. And he was I think he was pretty spot on as far as what he wrote about Moses. it's very fascinating. It's very interesting to read what Freud wrote about Moses, who was the greatest prophet ever. The Bible says that he talked to God face to face, and God considered him a friend. It says that so Samael was the one who wrestled with Jacob, and he also, it said that he planted the tree of knowledge and tempted Adam and Eve to eat its fruit. He was the one, supposedly, as far as the Kabbalah goes, as far as the Zohar goes, ancient Jewish text, scripture, they say that Samael was the serpent that tempted Eve, and then Adam, and they ate of the fruit, and there you go. Samael, the angel of death, kills only at the orders of God. It's not like that he goes out and just kills people, And when I say kill people, it's not that he even kills them. It's just that he's there when they die, or his name, Samael, actually means God's venom. God's venom. Maybe God's poison, but it's actually God's venom. So it says that he doesn't place judgment on anyone. He's just simply carrying out God, the Creator, the Source's orders. Because everything happens due to the Creator's whim, and it includes the destruction of people sometimes. You read about it in the Old Testament, and you think, wow, that's pretty barbaric, But when you look at it the way that it's meant to be looked at, there's always a reason, and it may not be that a certain group of people were destroyed. It may be talking about something completely different, and I'll get into that also. Because, a lot of people have said, well, that's a slaughterhouse, doctrine, or that's a slaughterhouse religion. And it's really not. It's metaphorical language describing something that it's not meant to be taken literally most of the time. And there's powerful truths and knowledge to be gained from that. But it says, once God is given the order to destroy, Samael immediately goes on to fulfill this duty without question. Well, being an archangel, he's not going to say, okay, are you sure that's a good idea? It's not going to happen. It's just like, in the armed forces, your superior tells you to do something, you don't question him, you do it. So, it says, on the hour of a person's death, it is said that the angel Samael appears before them with his sword drawn, there again, metaphor, where at its tip is a drop of poison, God's venom, again, metaphor. It is this poison that truly kills the person. Metaphor, metaphor, metaphor. And I'm just going to stop saying that because you get the picture. The expression to taste of death comes from this very act of Samael in his angelic work. Jacob, you say, from what I have read, he was also the angel God sent to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. I think that's right. I don't know for sure. Don't quote me on that. I believe that that it was Samael too. That the Bible says that in one night, I'm not sure if this is the right number, but it says the angel of God slew 185,000 Assyrians. Wow. That's pretty good for one night's work. But it's been said throughout history that okay, Elaine, good night. Hope the pain meds help. What has been written is that, you know, he is a very extremely powerful archangel. So that would, I would say 185,000 Assyrian soldiers just wiped out in one night. That's pretty powerful. See, Patricia, you say, wait, but isn't he loyal to God? So it doesn't make much sense that he was the serpent tempting Adam and Eve. Okay, I understand that. I'm glad you pointed that out. Because this is the deal. Is it makes sense when you realize that that there's what God's plan is, what God actually wants or has entrusted Samael to do, or the task or job that he's given him to do. And it's amazing because it's like his two main virtues, or two main things that are attributed to him is temptation and death. Okay, temptation. And it seems to be that God has him to tempt people, or to present them with something, I guess, like a test. Well, in that case, Adam and Eve failed the test, so to speak. So that's that. And there again, we have been taught to view the serpent as evil. But you have to remember, nothing happens without the Creator's permission, the Almighty's permission, without Him knowing. I mean, it just doesn't. And so I believe, in my opinion, that that there is testing that goes on. I mean, it's all in the Bible. That a certain angel, whether it be Satan or whether it be this angel Samael, they test people and to see if they're going to do good, stay with God's commandments, or they're going to deviate from God's commandments and do the opposite. Archangels are said to be the most powerful of all angels. Their rank is often signified by the L in their names. E-L. Samael, Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, Raziel, and so on. Raziel, for example, means secret of God. And the EL stands for God's power. So, in a way, when the angels act, when the archangels act, they act with the same power and authority as God. Right, Jacob. He's the Passover angel, the one who killed all of the Egyptian firstborn. Yes. And that's a long story for those of you that aren't familiar with the Bible, but we can get into that. Trish, you say, I'm just a bit confused, and I don't mean to start any problems. I welcome problems. There's no problems. They're just solutions. Maybe we don't know the solutions yet, but it's fun to find those solutions. So don't worry about that. But if God already knew what Adam and Eve would do, then why did he put them in Eden and tempt them in the first place? Good question. Great question, matter of fact. I'll be the first one to say, I have no idea. I don't know. I'm not sure that anyone knows. But we'll take a quick break, and I'll come right back. I think that Elaine's here with me from the other podcast. But I'll be right back, and we will continue this and answer Patricia's question. Good question. Be right back.
Always keep your head up, never let it beat ya. Your heart is shattered like a china doll in 1,000 pieces. Save your teardrops, we'll glue it back together. Make it brand new. Yeah, don't you know the night's still young? You can do whatever you want. So don't you let the light burn out. Always keep your head up, never let it beat ya. Just hold on. Yeah, hold on. So hold on. Always keep your head up, never let it beat ya. And if you fall down, I'll be there to catch you like a parachute. Step by step, we'll climb the highest rooftops and watch the sunrise. Yeah, don't you know the night's still young? We can do whatever we want. So never let the light burn out. Always keep your head up, never let it beat ya. Just hold on. Yeah, hold on. So hold on. Always keep your head up, never let it beat ya. You drown your sorrows in a bottle of wine, 'cause you're too afraid to love. I can show the world, just take my hand and hold on. Just hold on. Yeah, hold on. So hold on. Always keep your head up, never let it beat ya. Just hold on.
Okay, I'm back. Patricia, I'm going to read your question again. You say, I'm just a bit confused, and I don't mean to start any problems, but if God already knew what Adam and Eve would do, then why did he put them in Eden and tempt them in the first place? Like I said, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. But it may be this is maybe they were there before. Maybe it wasn't their first time. And maybe they weren't there to make the choice. Maybe they were there to experience it again, to understand why they made the choice they did in the first place. That's really the only answer that I have. I mean, as far as that goes, it's like if that's not the answer, then it must be like a movie or like a script that's been written. And there again, you have scripture. So maybe it is. Maybe it's like a screenplay that's been written. And then we get into, okay, well, if that's the case, then are we unknowingly actors? Are we avatars? Jacob, you say not all have the Metatron, for example. I know that Metatron is supposed to be, or it's talked about in Jewish text as being a cherub or archangel. I think cherub. I think they say that Metatron was one that watches over one of the cherubs on the Ark of the Covenant. But I don't know that much about Metatron. And then, Patricia, you say that sounds a bit confusing. Well, yes, it sounds confusing, but have you ever made a choice that you knew was going to cause you a lot of problems, and you knew it was wrong, but for some reason you just could not do the right thing, and you, no matter what you did, you were compelled to choose to do the wrong thing, and you're looking back and you're saying, wow, why did I do that? Well, what if it really wasn't that you had a choice? What if you already made the choice, say like in a previous time or a different timeline, parallel universe, whatever you want to call it, and you were meant to experience that same choice, albeit the wrong choice, to understand why you made the choice you did. I hope that explains it a little bit more, but it is confusing. Nazarene, you say, my opinion is maybe God wanted for Adam and Eve to leave heaven for all of us to live this life, which is a test too. See, let me read that again. My opinion is maybe God wanted for Adam and Eve to leave heaven for all of us to live this life, which is a test too. This life is a test. Everything's a test. It's a spiritual test, and I think that the highest spirituality that we can reach is pretty simple. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you, like Jesus said, and love God with all your heart, all your mind, all your soul. That pretty much sums it up. Patricia, you say, I suppose, but that was going against my intuition because at the time I thought my intuition would get me in trouble with my abusive ex, so it seemed like I didn't have a choice either way. Well, maybe you didn't. And that's what I'm talking about, is when it seemed like that you don't have a choice, maybe you don't. When it does seem like that you have a choice and you make the wrong choice anyway, and you're scratching your head wondering why you made that choice, again, maybe it's because you already made it. Maybe this is just a repeat, and I can talk about that later. It's described very clearly in the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 1, and it even talks about circuits and cycles, in, again, metaphorical language. But what it's talking about is, I personally believe that it's talking about, it is either talking about reincarnation. Whoa, he said that. Yeah, I did. It's talking about that, or it's talking about timelines, or it's talking about circuits. You make the circuit, you make the course, you make the cycle, you go through the cycle. How many times do you go through a cycle? I don't know, maybe many times. Maybe until you learn what you're meant to learn. And Nazarene, you're right. Not making a choice is a choice. That's right. If you choose not to make a choice, you made a choice. And that's why why free will is so powerful, is because it's something that you cannot, you can't get away from it. Choice is very powerful, and it's like, people that say, well, on Judgment Day, or whatever that is, I'm just going to say, well, you know what, I didn't choose. I didn't choose yay or nay. Yeah, you did. You chose to sit on the fence, which, according to the Bible, according to most religions, most spirituality, sitting on the fence, being neutral, that's worse than not making. That's worse than making the wrong choice. But anyway, Samael is more than just a destroyer angel. He's also known as the accuser and the seducer. Says he seduces humanity into acts of evil. If that seems a bit extreme, well, Samael's just doing his job. Because when he tempts, or when he seduces people into acts of evil, you and I all know that people have the choice, the power to say no. I'm not going to do it. But if it's in their heart and they want to do it, they're going to do it. And I believe that that's how God, the Creator, tests our heart, tests what's in our spirit, is by this very thing. He has the Archangel Samael to tempt people to see what's in their heart, and whether it be good or evil, it's gonna make itself known. So anyway, in the Kabbalah, Samael is the prince of demons and rules the Quipoth, which is the demonic or the dark realm on the other side of the Tree of Life. Now I'm going to get to that in just a minute, about how the Tree of Life is maybe much more than what we've been led to believe. And this just came to me today, this afternoon. I was looking at the Tree of Life and noticed that Samael is related to Mars, the planet Mars. That is that's the planet of wars. The planet of war, Mars. Aries, Ares. Mars is also known as the Ram. The Archangel Samael is said to be related with the planet Mars. He states that in the Zohar, Samael says, "My entire domination is based on killing. And if I accept the Torah, there will no longer be wars. My rule is over the planet Madim, Mars, that indicates spilling of blood," the Zohar. Mars is related to the sephiroth, to the sphere on the Tree of Life, Geburah, which means severity. And it's the fifth sphere from the top down on the Tree of Life. Now, when I read that, I was like, okay, it's the fifth sphere. I'm thinking, okay, well, the Earth is a sphere. It's not a ball. I mean, it's not a perfect circle. It's a sphere. And I'm thinking about the other planets and their spheres too. And then I remembered in the past, in the ancient past, or thousands of years ago, especially during the Renaissance and different times of enlightenment or whatever, they would talk about the music of the spheres. The music of the spheres. Well, they're talking about the music of the planets, the tones of the planets. And if Geburah is the fifth sphere from the top down on the Tree of Life, then that would be, you would have Mercury, the planet Mercury, as number one. You would have Venus, number two. Earth, number three. And Mars, number four, right? Because it's just Mars is number four. No. Hey, baby. There's Mona. Mars is not number four. What do we have between Earth and Mars? We have the asteroid belt. And I believe that the asteroid belt was a fourth planet that was demolished, that was completely destroyed, and that's what gave us the asteroid belt, just completely torn to pieces. So, when you count that, Mercury is 1, Venus is 2, Earth is 3, this asteroid belt as the 4th planet that was somehow exploded or was slammed by another planet or a comet or something. That would be 4. What's next? You have number 5, Mars, which would be the sephiroth, the sphere on the Tree of Life that Samael is related to. So that would be, Mars would be the 5th planet, and I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm going to look at this and see if the planets themselves correlate with the spheres on the Tree of Life, and sure enough, they do. Believe it or not. And so I was right. The music of the spheres are the planets and their tones. Now, if you think about that, what we're talking about is we're actually talking about tones, and like Tesla said, everything think of things in terms of tones and vibration, and so as far as the planets, Neptune would be the crown, would be the main sphere on the Tree of Life. Saturn would be understanding. Saturn would be understanding. Uranus would be wisdom. And so on the right hand of the Tree of Life, you have the male, the masculine. On the left side, you have the feminine. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4. But there's one that's hidden, and I'll get to that. But Mars would be Geburah, which is severity. Jupiter would be mercy. Teferet would be beauty, and that's the sun. Mercury would be Hod, and I can't make out what that says, but Venus would be Netzach, and I can't make out what that says either. This is from a very old chart. The moon would be Yesod, which is the foundation, and the earth would be Malkut, the kingdom. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3. Okay, that would be 10, including the sun and the moon. But there's one hidden. And the hidden one is Pluto, which is knowledge, which is the Hebrew word dot, D-A apostrophe A-T, but it's pronounced dot. It sometimes looks like it would read dath, but that's the void. That's the hidden part. That's the hidden sphere, and it is really, really something, because people that do spiritual work, that that want to be spiritually powerful, have strong spiritual knowledge, they if they do the Tree of Life, or I guess they all have to cross Dot. They have to cross the sphere of Dot, which is Pluto. And for those of you that have never seen a chart of the Tree of Life, it's really something very neat, very interesting, fascinating. You might Google it, like Tree of Life chart, planets, spheres in the Tree of Life, and just read up on it. It's very, very interesting. But anyway, so, and also, by the way, there's a lot of numerology and things as far as the course you take on the Tree of Life, such as there's Keter, the crown. There's Bina, or Bina, understanding. Hakma, wisdom. So you take one that's connected to the other, that's connected to the other, and so on. But they're all connected to the sun directly. So, like I said, you just have to download the chart or whatever and look at it. So anyway, that is Kabbalistic astrology, which I'm not going to really get into that because astrology is just not my forte. So, but we can talk about that when Jacob saw the ladder, Jacob's ladder, I believe he was looking at Tree of Life on another Tree of Life, but I believe he was also looking at DNA. And when you see this Tree of Life, or you look up Tree of Life, Jacob's ladder, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's pretty clear that it's that the Tree of Life, in that context, is or maybe DNA. So interesting. And what's even more interesting than that is we come back to Samael, and he's the angel of death, right? He, it's his job to slay people, or to take care of them dying or whatever. But there's more there than meets the eye. And what that is that he is, when he kills someone, or takes their life, it is a metaphor for let me find it here so I can read it the way it needs to be read, so you'll get the full power of it. Let's get so many notes. Okay, here it is. When we acquire real knowledge, for example, just hearing about this teaching, it's second-hand knowledge. It can taste bitter. It can taste intense. It can shock us. That knowledge is the essence of this angel, Samael. It is a bitter beverage to the ego. To what? To the ego. What's the ego? It's the little m-e. It's the little you. It's not the big you, it's the little you. It's your ego, your pride. And we all have it. And what this is saying is you can hear a teaching. You can hear someone tell you what they experienced as, spiritual truth. But it's saying until you experience it for yourself, which is Gnosis. Gnosis. And Gnosis means knowledge. The same that dot, or it looks like dath in Hebrew, is the Hebrew word for knowledge. When you experience it for yourself, it's unique and it changes you. If you're just getting secondhand information from, somebody else's experience, it's not going to do much for you. I mean, I'm sorry to say that, but it's really not. It's like it's diluted, and you're just getting, you're just hearing a story, which, not to burst anybody's bubble, not to put anybody down that goes to church, but that's what you do. That's what people do when they go to church. They go there and they listen to a man, minister, preacher, who describes his own interpretation of Scripture, or gives his own opinion of what he sees as truth. And so they think that they're experiencing, spirituality and spiritual power. And they're really not, because it's his experience. It's his opinion. And they're just agreeing with it. They're not having that one-on-one personal experience that is Gnosis. That's actually experiencing it for yourself that changes people. This says, thus when we encounter Gnosis or dot, Hebrew for knowledge, we enter into a great conflict psychologically. I'm talking about real knowledge, the esoteric knowledge, not just beliefs. When you experience this knowledge and you receive your own knowledge from that experience, you feel a great shock to the depth of your soul. Most people run away because it is intense and a poison, a venom to the ego. It terrifies the ego because that angel, Samael, is the angel of death to the ego. So, we've been taught that he goes out and literally kills people, right? Well, truth is, he or it, the energy, is the death to the ego. The angel Samael is Mars, Aries, the god of war, against the ego. So, Aries, Mars, Samael are all the same force. He wages his war on behalf of God, not for selfish purposes, and not to punish indiscriminately, but to punish on behalf of God with the permission of God and for the good of all. Samael performs the will of God. The Zohar says, let me get this right. Okay, the Zohar says, friends, listen to the ancient words that I wish to reveal after permission from above has been granted for them to be said. And it says, there is no Elohim, there's no God with me. Samael and the serpent. I kill and I make alive. I kill with my Shekinah whoever is guilty, and I make alive with her whoever is innocent. The Zohar. So that really gets into a lot of deep things. But what it's talking about is it's talking about energy. It's talking about certain energies. It's when it says, the serpent, when it says Shekinah, which was the Shekinah glory, it's an energy. And when he says, I make alive with her, talking about the Shekinah, because it was kind of like a feminine energy. Well, where's the masculine energy? Samael. Samael's the masculine energy. Samael is that masculine sexual energy. Shekinah would therefore be the feminine sexual energy. So, the power of Samael is to kill and to make alive. So, to kill is to kill the ego. To make alive is it's like when he or it kills the ego, it frees your spirit. It makes your spirit come alive. But with him also being the angel, and I say, quote, angel, in charge of your sexual functions and libido and things like that, it could be that the power of Samael, an energy, not necessarily an entity, although it could be both, is to make one alive, which would be reproduction. So that makes a lot of sense if you think about it. If you look at Samael, if you look at most things, like most entities that are mentioned as a person, it really doesn't make a lot of sense. But if you look at them like an energy, it does make a lot of sense. It does make sense. But this is the root of Judaism and Christianity, but almost everyone ignores it. Why? Because they've been taught it is literal. I've heard people say, I'll tell you, from the book of Genesis to Revelation, I believe every word is true. And I'm like, okay, so you believe that that Joshua stopped the sun. You believe that Samson tied the tails of 300 foxes together and set fire to the dry harvest, the dry harvest of his enemies. Yes, I do. Really? You believe one man could catch 300 foxes and tie their tails together, put a torch in the middle, and let them go, and they're going to run straight down the rows of crops and set fire to them? Wild foxes. Yep, I believe it. Okay. I don't. It's a metaphor. It's an allegory for truth, although I don't know what that truth is. I haven't figured that out yet. But when we look into the Garden of Eden, you see that Samael is the serpent. Now the serpent is the symbol of wisdom. Symbol of wisdom. Jesus told the disciples, he says, be as innocent as doves, but as wise as serpents. So the serpent, yeah. The serpent has wisdom. I mean, that's the symbol. So, it talks about, and I don't necessarily agree with this, but this is the Kabbalah. It says the serpent is the divine kundalini, the very energy of creation. In the Bible, the serpent comes to tempt the woman in relation with the tree of knowledge. This indicates a very deep relationship between divine knowledge, the knowledge of God, the divine mother, death, water, and the serpent. Now, the reason that is because the first three letters of Samael's name, S-A-M, the S is Sheen, the A is Ayin, and the M is Mem. Those are the three mother letters of the Hebrew language. And if you know anything about the Hebrew language, the Hebrew letters, there's 22. They all have a very specific, multi-layered meaning, definition, and power. It's the S, the sheen, is tooth. It means tooth. It's the triple flame, actually quadruple flame when you turn it on its side. And then Ayin is the eye, and Mem is water. So, it says there's a connection between divine knowledge, divine mother, death, water, and the serpent. All of these things are deeply profound, and the meaning is not easy to grasp. Well, tell us something we don't know. So, when you investigate different religions, different belief systems, what you find is that you find the tree of life, or you find a tree. It's based on the same principle. And you find that that tree is usually related with the goddess. The goddess, that feminine energy that, why don't we read about that? Why weren't we taught about that? Well, because the Roman Catholic Church shut the divine feminine down. This is going to be a masculine society. There's not going to be a mother. This is going to be a father. Yeah. Patriarchal, we're going to rule with an iron fist. And they have. I mean, it's look around. I mean, look at the world. Yeah, it's that severity. It's not understanding. There's a lack of wisdom. There's a lack of understanding, which is that's the left side of the tree of life. The right side is the severity. The masculine. So, in the Egyptian tradition, Nut or Nut is the goddess of the tree of life. Wow. So, tree of life, huh? Thought it was a Jewish thing. Well, it's also an Egyptian thing. If you think about that, you think about the Israelites being slaves in Egypt, and they picked up a lot of their customs, or vice versa. So, who knows? We see pictures of her pouring out a liquid to sustain the life of her followers. That liquid is the beverage of God, the medicine of Samael. It is the ambrosia, or soma in Sanskrit. Soma gives the power of creation, the power of immortality, Immortality is the 13th arcanum, which is Mem, or water. It emerges from the waters of the Divine Mother. So, it seems like it is all metaphorically describing the same thing, but not in terms that we would readily understand and recognize. So that's where people make the mistake, is they're looking for something that is literal, and when they don't see it, or it doesn't happen for them, they're like, well, okay, this needs to happen soon, because I'm running out of patience. And they wait and wait and wait, and it doesn't happen, and or they don't realize that it's already happening, and they lose heart. I mean, they're crushed. And I've talked to several who that's how they felt, was and I do all these things, and I don't feel the power. Well, it's because you're looking for literal things that have been described and mentioned, and you're missing what's right in front of you. You're missing what you're experiencing. And if you read it and you study it in a multi-layered, I guess you could say, depth, kind of like a cube, like a transparent cube, where you have compartments, you have you have layers, you have tiers, you have I guess you could say, a cube is 64 by 64, correct? You have like the first tier, second tier, third tier, fourth. Think of a Rubik's cube that's transparent, and you're starting out at ground level. The higher up you go is more and more power, more and more power in the knowledge, but the knowledge is not readily understood. You have to look at everything. You have to weigh everything, and then it makes itself known, and that's Gnosis. That's when you find out for yourself. Anyway, I'm going to make a few shout outs, because the Texarcist is podcast is I checked Spreaker alone, and since the first, each week, we've had like 300 plus listeners, and I just want to shout out, before we go to a song, quick break. I want to shout out to those that are now listening on Castbox. Hey, I appreciate you listening, and if you would, please send me an email. Feel free to, at the texarcistpodcast@gmail.com, and let me know what topics you want to talk about, or if you have any ideas, that'd be great. Possibly soon will be on Pandora. We're already on iHeartRadio. So, and also, shout out to the many YouTube listeners. Wow. So many like-minded people on YouTube. Last week, there was 176 listeners. It's just a lot of people on YouTube. Thank you for listening. And shout out to new listeners in Newton, Iowa, Riverside, Rhode Island, Centrala, Illinois, Bethel, Washington, Gillingham, United Kingdom, Moscow, Idaho, and Roanoke, Texas. And also new listeners in Croatia and Kazakhstan. Thank you very much. I appreciate you listening. And like I said, if you want to send me an email on topics that you want to hear, that you want to discuss, please let me know. We'll take a quick break, be right back, and we'll pick up where we left off.
Found in taking bigger hits, the bliss, the ocean's kiss needed a part of it. There was so much to see and to be running from, nothing to lose, and yet you were afraid to come to see what you'd become, not needing anyone. We tore a prison down in the ocean.
Okay, and I'm back. Anyway, so what are your thoughts on this metaphorical language? Truth being, knowledge being hidden in what seems to be what many people take as literal things, and it's my opinion that, like I said, it may be that there is an entity that whose name is Samael, but I feel like that it is more of an energy, more of a natural phenomena, or a natural process, I should say, that that is veiled through these through this language, or just like Jesus talked in parables to, I don't know, teach truth, to make people, so people could understand and accept truth much easier. In fact, he said that he spoke in parables, so those who had ears to hear and eyes to see spiritually, that they would know what he was talking about, and those who didn't wouldn't know. So, but it says here that judgment is related to the sephiroth, Geburah, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. The tribe of Dan is judgment in Hebrew, and Samael, Mars in Greek, in Roman mythology is the god of war. Likewise, in the Jewish book the Zohar is explained that Samael is the ruler of Madim, which is the Hebrew word for Mars. Samael works in the animal kingdom through war and through killing, because Geburah is related with blood. Thanks to the forces of Samael, the lion persecutes the deer in order to be fed and to multiply, thanks to the forces of Yesod, Samael, Scorpio in the animal kingdom. So this is basically talking about on earth, in heaven, and in the zodiac, you have different things. The Tree of Life. Samael, this powerful archangel, is connected to most of it, if not all of it. So it says that Esau is also a hunter, but Jacob is different. Jacob defeats Esau. Jacob does not hunt animals like Esau. Jacob says, I have to fulfill the fifth commandment. There's the number 5 again, which is related to the fifth sephiroth on the Tree of Life, which says, thou shalt not kill. Jacob wants to be a human being. Jacob also fulfills the 6th commandment of God that says, you shall not fornicate, because any animal fornicates, meaning reaches the orgasm, the spasm, in order to be multiplied, reproduction, since it is an animal. But the human being, Jacob says, I shall not fornicate, I shall not eat of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And this is how he defeats Esau, Samael, and advances in spiritual knowledge, or if you want to look at it as spiritual initiation. So, oh wow, I've been missing all these comments and everything. It usually moves for me, so forgive me. Let me catch up here. Jacob, you said until we get it right. I think that's true. I mean, I think it cycles, circuits, whatever you want to call it. I don't think this is our first time here. I think that we're returning on this ride we call life. How many times? I don't know. I think it may be different times for different people. Anyway, yeah, Patricia, you say Samael controls reproduction. Why did you have to give me cramps? Yeah, Samael's probably not women's favorite archangel. But okay, you say, I thought she was the goddess of the night sky. Are you talking about Nut or Nut, Nuit, the Egyptian goddess? Jacob, you say females bring forth life. Well, yes, true. And you say it's a Celtic thing and a Viking thing, the Tree of Life. Actually, what I just read about the tribe of Dan is judgment in Hebrew, that's related to the fifth sephiroth. The Talitha Danann, I believe that's how you pronounce it. They went a long time ago. I don't know, thousands of years ago, maybe 3,000 years ago. They went into ancient Ireland, possibly Scotland, I'm not sure. And you can look it up, the Talitha Danann, and they were viewed as people with supernatural powers, very, very spiritually powerful. Some say that they had, they used like witchcraft, black magic, or whatever, but they had like paranormal, supernatural powers, and many say, and I believe, that it was the tribe of Dan from Israel, from Palestine, because the tribe of Dan is not mentioned in the book of Revelation. We kind of go off the map. And so that would make sense. Patricia, you say, YouTube, really? Yes, YouTube is, I have more listeners on YouTube than probably any other platform. And I had so many people saying, don't put an audio, just an audio podcast or show on YouTube. Nobody will listen to it. Well, I'm glad that I didn't listen to them, because, man, I mean, there's a lot of people, like 175 to 200 plus each week. So there you go. Should you say, well, for those to think of it in a literal sense, I can understand where they're coming from. And since kids learn about religion early on and take a lot of things literal, like imaginary friends and whatnot, it may be that they have it ingrained in their minds because of that psychological idea. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's like these people that I've talked to. I mean, I'm not saying they're bad people. I'm just saying that I think that they're making a mistake. I think that they're in error, because they believe that if, and no offense to anyone that thinks this way, I'm not picking on you. I'm not trying to be rude, but those that say, well, every word is literal, they seem to think that if they view it or they read it or accept it as an allegory or metaphorically, that it's somehow sin or somehow wrong. And it's not. It's not wrong. Like I said, Jesus said, I speak in parables to you so you'll understand. He says, I am giving you basically the secrets, the knowledge of heaven. He says, so you'll understand. But people who aren't spiritual, who don't have the ears to hear and eyes to see, so they won't understand. And the Bible also says, don't cast your pearls before swine. Now, that's pretty extreme, but it's saying don't reveal truth and knowledge to people that are just going to trample it, to people that are just going to, they're not going to appreciate it, they're not going to value it. It says don't cast your pearls before swine. And if you've looked around the world lately, I mean, even in your city or where you work or whatever, yeah, people aren't very spiritual, are they? They have their mind set on this world and pleasure, physical pleasure, not spiritual knowledge, not gaining anything spiritual. They want to gain everything physical, materialistic. It's just the way it is. So anyway, it goes on, and it says that Samael is faithful and Samael is true. Well, I would hope so, since he's an archangel. It says Samael's force in the physical body is in the blood. Okay, what does the Bible say? The life is in the blood. I've said this before. I don't think it's talking about blood per se. I don't think it's talking about literal blood. I think it's talking about the DNA, the life force. And it's hey Georgia, glad you're here. Yeah, better late than never. But it says that that Samael's force in the physical body is in the blood. Okay, but I don't think it's talking about blood. I think it's talking about the life force, the spark of life, that divine spark. And it's, in my opinion, when it says that God breathed his breath into Adam's nostrils, and Adam became a living being, I believe that is what made the difference. Because could it be that God, the creator, the source, actually transmitted to Adam part of his DNA, or part of its DNA? Because remember, Francis and Crick, who discovered DNA, they said right away, they said it didn't originate on Earth. They said it is not of Earth. They said it's just, where'd it come from? We don't know, but it had to come from somewhere else. And they're like, why? And they said, it's so complex. And this was way back. I mean, this was years ago. Okay, well now it's even more so. And get this. They are saying, and they have said since the 80s, but it's becoming more and more, they're saying it publicly more and more, that DNA is almost identical to computer code. Matter of fact, they say that it is a type of computer code. Hello? Hello? I mean, what does that tell you? You know, we're talking about artificial intelligence. We're talking about programming or partially programming, and then the robot or the AI becomes sentient, and it begins to program itself. It doesn't need a human programmer. What does that tell you? It tells me that when they say that our DNA did not come from Earth, did not originate on Earth, well, where did it originate from? Could it be that the Bible's telling us where it originated from? God breathed the breath of life into Adam's nostrils, and he became a living being, or living soul. Keep in mind that prior to that, there was the creation of a man and woman, or a man, and it must not have worked out. Something was wrong. Something was missing. What was missing? The breath of God. There again, metaphor. Could it be that the breath of God is, the spark of God is DNA? Or a coding, like a divine code that's been placed in our DNA, in our genome. And get this, they're even saying now that we all have have divine DNA of God. They don't know what it means, but it's different from the rest of the DNA makeup, the genetic makeup, and it's I think that every cell in your body has like 3 billion. It's a code of 3 billion, coding or characters or whatever you want to call it. I'm not a computer guy, so I really don't know how to say that. But it's a continuous computer code is what it looks like. In every cell in your body of a strand of 3 billion characters, or 3 billion, just like the TACG, DNA as far as that, and then to yeah, you're right, Patricia, and that's only the stuff we know about for sure, right? They say that we only use 3% of our DNA. The other 97% is what they call junk DNA. They call it junk because they don't understand it. Well, just because you don't understand it doesn't mean it's junk. It just means that you may not know how to make it work. And to be honest with you, I believe that that is the fear of most people, if not the world or the powers that be. I believe that they keep us, or try to keep us, from knowing or learning how to activate this latent DNA that we all have. Because when we do, it's very, very powerful. It has to be. And so what would be ways that we would, how we would activate it? Well, look at what they don't want you to do. You know, they want to make you look. They want to make you chase. They want to make you pursue everything materialistic, everything carnal, everything that has to do with pleasure. What do they keep you from? Spirituality. You know, like if you meditate, if you pray, if you say that you believe in a higher power, a lot of times people, you know, they're like, oh, okay, you know, that's cool. And then behind your back, they're like, oh, man, fruitcake, you know. Well, why? Why is that? Well, I believe that that is how we activate that latent DNA. And I think that if you were to activate, I don't know, let's say another 3%, I think your life would change dramatically for the better. But there's also the I guess what I'm trying to say is there should be caution should be taken, because imagine going from 3% to like 90% or 100%. You couldn't. There's no way that you would be able to handle that. I mean, you would self-destruct. You just lose it, in my opinion. So it's like when it happens. It's a process. It's not something where you wake up one morning and go, wow, I can't believe how enlightened I am. I can't believe that, you know, I can see 360 degrees in every angle, and which would basically make you God. I know everything. And I have had people contact me and tell me, you know, I had this awakening, and I'm not kidding, their exact words, I now know everything. And I'm like, what? Like, yeah, I know everything. I said, everything. That's saying that you know everything. I mean, how else can you know? I mean, it's crazy. Are you serious? Yeah, I'm serious. So I'd say, okay, do I have on socks right now or not? And they would be, you know, they're like, well, what does that matter? Well, it matters to me. You know everything. That would make you God. So, you know, am I wearing socks right now? Which before I ask them that, I would take one sock off. Ha ha ha. So, yeah. It's like, you know, people, they may activate like 1% beyond the 3%. You know, I don't know if that's, you know, if that's an accurate percentage or whatever, but they activate their DNA, or they may activate their DNA a little bit beyond what they have, and just a little bit, and they're telling people, I know everything. Come again? I know everything. I just do. I mean, I'm just being flooded with all this information. Well, my question is just because you're being flooded with information doesn't mean it's true. You know, it's, yeah. So I think that, you know, people in the past, people now that are true, I guess you could say, prophets, or true, you know, spiritual giants, that they have activated part of their, what at one time was latent DNA, and it just opened up so much for them. Like Tesla. Man, you want to talk about textbook? Yeah, I really believe. I don't think it was so much his brain or his mental capabilities or anything like that. I think it was his DNA. I think that somehow something happened. Maybe it had to do with electricity, electromagnetism. I don't know, but something activated some of his latent DNA. And the guy was lived in the latter part of the 1800s, and I think he died in like 1943. He's the father of wireless technology, for God's sake. And I mean, wow. I mean, he talked about, people having cell phones. He didn't call them cell phones, but he says, there'll be a small device where you can talk to anybody on the planet. And he says, and you won't need wires. And wow, how could he know that? Right, Georgia. Ego, yes. And that's just it. This person that, told me that, they claimed that they didn't even want attention. Well, when somebody has to tell you that they don't want attention or they don't care about attention, it's pretty much telling you they want it. It's a paradox, but yeah, I'm not a prideful person, and I don't care about, being seen or whatever. Then why are you always running? Why are you always, why am I always seeing your face? Why am I always hearing you? I mean, it's like, oh, because I know everything. Okay, all right. Okay, just go on outside, and by the way, that's a closet door. I mean, I thought you would have known that since you know everything. Anyway, I'm kidding. So Samael's force in the physical body is in the blood. Samael controls the forces in the liver. And then because the blood pumps through the heart, it says Jacob, or Israel, is the heart, and Esau is the liver. So Samael is the blood. So you see that although these may be literal people, even if they aren't, and I'm not saying that, I'm just saying even if they aren't, this is still truth. It's talking about the blood but it's using Samael, Archangel Samael, as symbolizing the blood. It's talking about Esau symbolizing the liver, and Jacob symbolizing the heart. It makes you think about a lot of things. Even what is or who is God? Who is the Creator? What would the Creator? What would his force be? Well, Jacob became Israel, being the heart. That's your heart is the, besides your brain. I mean, it is the most amazing organ you have in your body. I mean, so. But the heart and the liver both relate with the blood. So Jacob and Esau both relate with Samael. So the fiery energy, the forces of Samael, the blood in the physical body, the forces of Samael work in the blood. So through the blood, Samael works, whether down or up depends on how we utilize our sexual energy. There you go. And I've already talked about that when Jacob was wrestling with the angel. So you have to bless me or I won't let you go. He touched his hip, which wasn't his hip. He touched his genitals, touched his sexual organs. And you know what? Jacob let him go. Yeah. As any man would. We're talking an angel. Very powerful. So, it says it touched his hip or touched his thigh and, popped it out of its socket. It's not really talking about hip. It's talking about his testicles, his reproductive organs. So, Samael is in charge of the blood, the libido, the sexual energy, reproduction, and it's the masculine force. He is also, symbolized by a ray of power. You can, think of that as your inner light or whatever. So I'm just, trying to explain how that that we can make the mistake of taking things literally when they're it's very, very subtle how the words are put together, how the different sentences are structured. You have to read and just go through it and say, okay, could it mean this? Could it mean that? So it talks about white horses being the white horse is a representation of matter and the mind as well. It is white because they are controlling the forces of sex. If the horse is black, it is because we are slaves of the forces of sex. Light is white and black is darkness. So in the Bible, when it talks about a white horse and a black horse, it makes sense if you think about it. The white horse in the book of Revelation is a rider with a bow. Doesn't have any arrows. So could that be a representation of matter and the mind only without any spiritual knowledge? No arrows. He has the bow, but he has no arrows. That's like people that are materialistic and that are dead set on everything in this world. They don't have that spiritual power. They don't have the spiritual knowledge. They don't have the arrows. It says it is white because they are controlling the forces of sex. So the having the bow with no arrows could be they're in charge of themselves as far as sexually. I don't know. I don't know what the symbolism is, but I'm open to any suggestions or whatever. Jacob, that had to hurt. Testes out of socket. Yeah. Ooh. In other news, yeah. But the black horse, it's the black horse. Gosh, I forget now what it was. Red horse was war. The pale horse was pestilence. The black horse was death, darkness. So could it be that life, living, is light, and that's white, and black is death. It is darkness. Spiritually. It says if the horse is black, it is because we are slaves of the forces of sex. And it says, let me see. See, the rider on the black horse could not be death, because the rider on the pale horse was death. Anyway, anybody want to help me out with the rider on the black horse as far as the four horsemen of the apocalypse, which again I believe is a metaphor. So this moves to our chakras, to our 7 chakras in our body, or energy centers. And get this, let's see, hold on. It says that the 5th chakra is in the power of Samael. Okay, well, there again, you have patterns, you have blueprints, as I call them. You have the as above, so below. So in the Tree of Life, it's the 5th sphere. In the chakras, it's the 5th chakra. Mars, with the asteroid belt of a planet that very clearly was destroyed, Mars would be the 5th planet. So you have this 5, 5, 5. Thank you, Mona. Famine. Okay, what is famine? It is hunger. You're starving for what? You're starving for knowledge. It's not food, although it very well could be both, but you're starving for knowledge. And how many of us have gone our entire life? It's like, so when did you learn? How old were you when you learned that famine could be that you're starving for knowledge? I'm like today old. I mean, yeah. I wish I could say I was like 7. You know, I just kicked back and was doing some spiritual studies and just had this. You know, was visited by the Archangel, and he just made it clear to me. No, I was like today old, and or the rider on the red horse, war. Okay. How about what if the war is not on Earth? What if the war is the war within yourself? The war against your ego, your super ego against your ego. Let go of my ego. I mean, but truthfully, what if this is talking, of course, the law of double reference? It very well could be talking about the taking peace away from the earth and causing war, and also be talking about taking peace away from you. And who's doing it? You are. It's just a different part of your mind that's doing it. And Jacob, you say the pale horse was death. Yes. But why does it say, and hell followed with him? Why does it say, and, there was a pale horse, and his rider was death, and hell followed with him? Well, because it would be, could it be like spiritual death? Maybe not physical, but spiritual death. And where do spirits go that have warred with themselves in their mind their entire life while they were living, because they were famished by a lack of knowledge? They were starving for knowledge. What eventually happens to their spirit? Spirit dies. Where do spirits go, supposedly, that never learned or accepted truth? They go to hell, right? The pale horse was death. The pale horse is the last horse out of the 4. So it's pretty much the end. See, it's a progressive, you have the white horse. That's the beginning. That's, that may be where we all start. But then you have the other horses, and I'm not sure if the black or red horse comes, before the, I think it's white, and then red, and then black. So you have the war within yourself, possibly, the war within your own mind, or the war between your mind and your spirit, and that causes you to go through famine, to be hunger, to starve for knowledge. Knowledge is power, and you're starving for it. What happens to people that starve? They die. The pale horse shows up. Okay, die of starvation. The pale horse was death. And again, where do spirits go that never got it, never understood, never accepted what spiritual knowledge is, because they were too busy with everything else in the world. They go to hell. So hell followed the pale horse, whose rider was death, because that's the final progression. I mean, that's the final state, hell. And then it talks about it says, remember that the true man, true woman, true human, is connected to God through speech, through what you say. The person is the speech. If you connect your mouth to your throat, and the throat chakra is dot. Looks like dath, it's dot, which is knowledge. Then you understand the word written in any book, the Word of God. Now I say that, I'm not talking about a Bible. I'm not talking about a book. Although the Bible's called the Word of God. But what I'm talking about is, I'm talking about that the Word of God, not written in a book, but written on your heart, written on your spirit. No one has to tell you what's good and what's evil. I mean, come on, really? You know it. Why? Because the Creator, the Source, God, whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to call him, her, a combination, whatever advanced that we can't even comprehend, has made sure that when you become spiritually mature, that the Word of God, which is truth, is written on your heart. And people, they run around, quoting scripture and this and that. That's man-made. I hate to tell you, that's man-made. The verses and everything. So, yeah, that's all. It's all of man. God never said, "Okay, we're gonna have to section this up," Right. Jacob, you say, hell followed with him because he was spiritual death. Exactly. The dead are cast into the lake of fire called the second death. That's right. Now, think about that. Spiritual death. That's huge. You die spiritually, I'm thinking to myself, if I was dead spiritually, would I even exist? I mean, I don't think so. Because your spirit is your core. I mean, that's your essence. So if you die spiritually, do you even exist? No, I don't think so. So that can't be talking about death as we define death. It has to be talking about something else. Maybe a state like death, or I don't know. But if it was death, I mean, like the end, I don't think we would even exist with our spirits dead. I mean, how do you cast the dead spirits into the lake of fire called the second death. They're already dead. So it's like, okay, how are they going to die again? I don't know. Thank you, Jacob. White, red, black, pale. Okay. George, you say, don't think you're dead, but yeah, you merely exist here on earth with no joy. Been there, done that. Yeah. Well, that's basically what I'm talking about, is that their spirits can't be dead. Because in my definition of dead, spiritual death, because when you're spiritually dead, you're gone. You're gone. I mean, it's the ultimate. That would be like saying energy ends, or it burns itself out. And we know that that's not true. Energy goes on forever. Einstein proved that, which Einstein, proving that was, that's God, the creator, or whatever, saying, hey, I'm trying to show you something. I'm trying to, listen to my man Albert, he's, I'm not going to make it public because, I want Albert to have all the glory, but yeah, I gave him this information, and yeah, energy keeps going forever, just like your spirit does. So, I think you're right, Georgia. It would be a matter of your perspective on how you saw yourself, how you felt in your spirit. And if you felt dead, then yeah, you would appear dead. You would act dead, which I guess acting dead would just be like catatonic or whatever. But you would not be dead in the sense that, you wouldn't know what was going on. So, yeah, I agree with you there. Jacob, you're quoting John chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. True. Now, take that with what I said about the DNA, and it says Word. In the beginning was the Word. When you type up a document now on the computer, what's it called? Word document, and that word in Greek is logos. A lot of computer terminology from the Bible. I mean, from Scripture, from spiritual text. So it's really strange, but it makes sense. It does. It makes sense with when you start to look at AI, when you start to look at different things that are coming out now. Right. John's talking about Jesus, the Word. Right. Yes. Absolutely. It goes on to say that that the fifth chakra, power of Samael, controlled by two forces. Get this: Venus and Mars. Venus, feminine; Mars, masculine. Samael states that the thyroid gland is controlled by two forces, Venus and Mars. Venus and Mars in Yesod and also up in Dot. Venus and Mars are also the pituitary gland. If you think about those glands, if you think about the pituitary gland, if you think about the pineal gland and the thyroid gland, what do all of those glands have in common that are unique about those three glands? They have, and the pituitary gland, the pineal gland, thyroid gland, and your brain, what do they have in common? Two halves. The pineal gland has a midline, just like your brain. Same direction. It's literally like as above, so below. As above, your brain, the line that goes through it, there's a right hemisphere, there's a left hemisphere, and you take that. The pituitary gland is the same, although very, much smaller. The pineal gland is the same, much smaller, and the thyroid gland is the same, much smaller. So that's it's like our brain, right hemisphere, left hemisphere. Hello, male, female, Venus and Mars, and boy, do those two war. It's like you want to learn about success. You want to learn about happiness. When the two become one, Jesus is talking about when the two become one, then you'll become a whole person, He's talking about husband and wife, but he's also talking about the two hemispheres of your brain. When you can join the two hemispheres of your brain, they live in peace. It's like marriage, husband and wife, male, female, Venus and Mars, Ricky and Lucy. I'm kidding. It's like opposites. When you take a positive, which would be, and this is not, I don't mean it this way. You take a positive. Take positive, which is the male. Take negative, which is the female. When you put them together, what should happen? They should cancel each other out, right? But they don't, amazingly. It's like when you connect a battery, the positive and the negative, what happens? Power. Boom. When you connect the male and the female, what happens? Well, reproduction, right? But also, what's it called? Making love. What is God? God is love. Boom. Why is so much attention? Why is sex such a huge topic, such a taboo topic? When you're doing the wrong thing or you're sinning sexually, why is that such a big thing? Why is that a bigger thing than, say, anything else? Because could it be that when the opposites come together, that's where true power is created? Making love, making It's like, with the power of God. I mean, you are creating what? You're creating life. You say, Jacob, you say, true death is spiritual death. When our bodies die, our spirits remain. Yes. Georgia, you say, organized religion. Yeah. That's the worst thing that that has ever been perpetrated, I say that, on the planet, is organized religion. Oh, man. Yeah. Man. Organized religion and politics has killed more people, caused more horror, more pain than anything else, and I can't stand it. Yeah, me too, Jacob. I consider myself a Christian, but I'm not a traditional Christian, and I'm not closed-minded. People say, so what denomination are you? And I'm thinking, oh, brother, I'm spiritual. I don't have a denomination. I didn't know that, when I last checked the Bible, I didn't see anything about denominations. Matter of fact, I saw that there would be a world system that would be set up that there would be division, among the children of God. What did you say again? Did you say denomination? Wow, that sounds so much like division, and I don't know. But when you have when you have a small town or a large town, and you drive down a city block, and there's like 22 churches, all different denominations, and they're like next door to each other. Like, okay, what's up with this? I mean, really? I just don't get it. Or on every corner, there's the Methodist Church, there's the Baptist Church, there's the Church of Christ. Well, I thought it was all Church of Christ. I don't know. And there's Presbyterian, Pentecostal, there's the Lutheran, and it's crazy. And then they, certain denominations, they don't associate, they don't have fellowship, they don't associate with certain other denominations, and I just want to take them on and lock them up and just force them to be together. George, you say you're still battling your Catholic guilt. That's true. I mean, yeah, you want to talk about, nothing against, people that are Catholic. I mean, I love everybody. I love Catholics. But what I'm against is the ones who are in charge, the ones who are running the show. They, especially in the Catholic, Roman Catholic Church, they are the ones that perfected the guilt trip. And they're the ones that perfected your grandmother, or your grandfather was, or mother, father, whoever, your loved one wasn't a very good person, okay? Right now, they're in purgatory, in limbo. But if you, if you donate, or you give money to the church, then we can say enough masses to get them out, pull them out, you know. It's like you know, say mass for your say mass for your sorry ass brother or whatever, you know, and we'll pull him out of limbo. Really? Are you kidding me? Oh my God. Okay, well, count me out, because I'm not buying into your BS. And this, you know, matter of fact, you know, Samael needs to visit some of these people, you know, and really just set them straight. And the guilt and the shame, hey, that is manipulation. Manipulation is the definition of witchcraft and black magic. It's not some supernatural force where you can, you know, telepathically affect someone from a distance. Well, maybe, I mean, but for the most part, it is nothing more than manipulation by making someone feel guilt and make them feel ashamed. Basically, it's a subtle humiliation, and it is methodical. It's focused. And that's the definition of witchcraft and black magic. Yes. And who does it? Who are the, you know, kings of manipulation? Well, you do the math. Can we say priests? Like Catholic priests? Televangelists, you know, that come out with their big smile and how, you know, oh, I am so prosperous. I just can't believe how rich I am and how happy I am. And, well, look at your congregation. They're not happy. I mean, you know, oh man, I can just think of so many things. But it's what really bothers me is the Catholic Church knew about these priests that were molesting and raping these little boys, and they didn't do a damn thing about it until they were confronted about it, and they had to do something about it. You know what? At that point, no. If I have to confront you to do something about a horrible thing that's going on, and you know damn well it's going on, but you're looking the other way because, you know, hey, they're your buddies. You know what? If they're raping little boys and they're your buddies, you know, you can go to hell. I mean, yeah, Pope, Cardinal, Bishop, whatever, I have no use for you. And there's a special place in hell for you. And you have Pope, you know, Benedict Ratzinger, apt name, by the way. He knew this was going on. He knew what was taking place. Did he do anything about it? No. Wasn't, you know, it was just not, wasn't something that really needed to be taken care of, I don't think. And it's like, are you serious? I mean, really? And I don't know. I just have no respect for for him or for any of the Vatican that or the Catholic Church that knew what was going on and didn't do anything about it, that looked the other way. Okay, George, you say the Pell case. Now I've heard of that. That's about the Catholic Church and the boys, right? I mean, see, you say the Pope said the other week that people have succumbed too much to consumerism and materialism. We need to live simpler lives from his gilded palace. Yeah. The smallest nation, the smallest country on earth, I'm talking like one acre, and they're the richest. And for him to say that, like, okay, you need to buy a picture of Jesus that was, we traveled back in time with a digital camera. We took, we had like a photo session with him, and so anyway, yeah, buy this picture and put it over your mantle. Oh man, I mean, nothing against people that haven't realized that God says in the Ten Commandments, for God's sake, says, you will make no graven images of me. What does everybody have in their house? I mean, what does everybody's, Christians have in their house? Pictures of Jesus. It's like, wow, I didn't know that Jesus sat down for have his picture painted. Didn't read that in the Bible. What I did read is, you shall make no graven images of me. Well, Jesus, Son of God, God in the flesh, why did God say, make no graven images of me? Because people are going to worship the image. It's just human nature. And you've got, Jesus with blue eyes and blonde hair, kind of looks like Hasselhoff, like, yeah, okay, It's like if you put a surfboard in his hand, it'd be like, okay, well, we got the surfer Jesus here. And then you go to, African American church or whatever, they got the black Jesus. You go to the Korean church, you got the Korean Jesus, And it's like, really? I mean, chances are Jesus didn't look like that at all. I mean, he was probably, about 5'6", and probably didn't have long hair, so to speak. I mean, at that, Jesus was a Nazarene, so he would have had his hair cut, but there would have been one strand that would have been long down the back, and look it up. I mean, you'll see what Yes, Jacob, exactly. If you go fight in the crusade, God will forgive your sins. Oh man, what a crock. Yeah, and then they go and say, when the Crusaders ask those in charge, ask the Pope at the time, I think it was in the Morocco, in Fez, said, and even in Jerusalem, but in Fez, the city of Fez, they said asked the Pope, said, well, with the Muslims and Christians, I mean, how do we know who to slaughter? The Pope said, kill them all. God knows his own. And you know what? They did. Men, women, and children. So much so that it said that there was so much blood that the blood ran down the streets and the gutters, and that the Crusaders, or those wearing their hats, dipped their tassel in the blood. Have you seen the fez hats that the Shriners wear with the red tassel on top? Yeah, that hat's called a fez hat. And the Shriners are what? They're they have the moon of Islam, which nothing wrong with that. I'm not talking about peaceful Islam. I'm talking about cruel, inhumane, demonic murderers who actually enjoy and get off on slaughtering men, women, and children and torturing people. Roman Catholic Church, oh yeah, we're Christians, but yeah, we're going to have this thing called the Inquisition, and it's going to be a hoot, let me tell you. Yeah, we're going to pull your arms and legs out of joint and everything because, just because we can. And it's like, really? I mean, and then you read about, like in, Fox's Book of Martyrs, and you read about how they would, this is not something that stopped when the Inquisition stopped. I mean, you read about, like in South America, you read like in Mexico even. I mean, this is something that is carried on up until, maybe into the 1900s, definitely the 1800s, and you can read about it. I mean, you can read documentation where the Catholic Church, if you want to call it that, they were still doing that. And it was like during that time of the Crusades and everything, it would be like they would go into a city or whatever and start asking people, okay, are you Catholic? Well, no. Well, you know what? We're going to make you an offer. Okay. You can either become Catholic or you can become dead. What? What do you think people are going to do? A few said, okay, I'm dead. Well, they were, physically. Yeah, I don't remember Jesus, walking up and making people that offer. I don't remember Jesus murdering anyone because they didn't believe like he believed. And then you take another form of the Inquisition where, in my opinion, it's where you destroy their mind, you destroy their soul by molestation and rape. I mean, those people, they're not ruined, I wouldn't say, but I can damn sure guarantee you they're never going to be the same. They're changed forever. And, of course, you have to understand that those priests, they're not so much to blame themselves personally, because the same damn thing was done to them, most likely. It's like a generational thing. I mean, yeah, they were probably raped by priests when they were little boys. So, hey, there's that that association, yeah, it was bad and everything, but I just, it's what I know because it's what happened to me over and over and over. A continuous, systematic is the word I was looking for. Systematic rape, systematic abuse. When it happens systematically over a long period of time, the victim begins to actually they accept it, some, and they start to care about their abuser, and so it's like that's really messed up, but it happens, and it's horrible. But anyway, well, we've hit the 3-hour mark, and I'm going to call it a night. But thank you all for taking part, and I just used the Archangel Samael tonight as an example of the way that you can read scripture, or you can read spiritual things and tell read more than just the surface level, and kind of see what's really being conveyed. And I hope that helps. And if you have any questions or anything, just message me. Those of you that know me, and just hit me up on Messenger. Those of you that are listening that didn't take part in the chat or listening to the rebroadcast, you can send me an email at the texarcistpodcast@gmail.com. Anyway, love and light to you all. Love you all. Good night from Texas. See you next time.